Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to Get Hit with the Truth. So today we are doing the Conceicao versus Foster 2 breakdown and prediction video, as we are going to look at the Super Featherweight Title Rematch, mandatory title rematch that has taken place Saturday, November 2nd in the main event of an ESPN card, as reigning, newly crowned champion Robson Conceicao defends his title against Conceicao Foster in a rematch from their, I believe it was August bout, or July bout, that ended in a controversial decision victory for Conceicao as he captured the WBC belt away from Foster. Now, before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel, I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I continue to build my channel here. So this is this is an interesting matchup right here. The WBC did the right thing, making it a mandatory rematch, as these two guys are going to collide next Saturday, November 2nd. Now, if you haven't seen my breakdown videos before, what we do is basically talk about each fighter in detail. We talk about the fight first, what it means, and then we get into each fighter in detail and what what they've done coming into the fight, their last 3 fights, all that kind of stuff. Asking the same questions on both sides, and I ask one final question that involves both, and then I give my prediction on the fight. In a title fight like this, we would start with the champion first, which is Conceicao, and then move over to the challenger, which is Foster. So this fight, what does it mean? This fight, again, the WBC did the right thing ordering this rematch. Their first fight back in July, 50-50 fight going in. A lot of people were excited about the matchup. Ended up not being a great fight, but Conceicao Foster should have won. He should have got the decision. I pretty much had it like 8-4, 9-3 kind of deal in that area. Where Foster messed up is he fought a too defensive in that fight. It was one punch at a time. It wasn't a lot of combinations. Yes, he was countering well. Yes, he should have won. But I'm trying to tell you all why the judges might have looked the other way. I don't agree that he lost. I don't think he should have lost, and I was pulling for Conceicao. I picked Conceicao in the first fight, but I thought Conceicao lost. But the reason that I think Foster had everything go against him was he was just playing defense, and it wasn't a ton of offense. Yeah, he was countering, but I'm talking about being aggressive, being the aggressor. I respect him trying to fight a different style than he's fought recently, but, excuse me, it worked against him, sadly, because, like I said, whatever I just said in the last minute and a half about the fight, he should have won, irregardless. So, but this fight, a lot is on the line in this rematch. The winner is likely going to fight the winner of the Navarrete-Valdez rematch that takes place in December to unify belts. So that's a big deal right there. It really is. There's rematches at stake. Foster has never fought Navarrete or Valdez, but he would love to fight both of them. And then Conceicao has fought both of them and suffered a controversial loss to Valdez a few years ago, back in 2021, a fight he should have won, and then suffered a controversial draw against Navarrete just last year, and a fight that a lot of people thought he won. So a lot is riding on the line for the winner of this fight. It really is a big fight for supremacy at the top of the 130-pound division. So let's get into it. Let's start with our champion coming into the fight, Robson Conceicao. We are going to look at his last 3 fights that date back to November of last year. And as I said, the draw that he had with Navarrete was the 3rd fight. So very active fighter. This is going to be his 4th fight in a calendar year, which is a big deal. He faced off against Navarrete in November of last year and fought to a draw. He took a couple knockdowns in that fight. That's what hurt him. But overall, he outworked Navarrete in that fight. I think it had a lot to do with Navarrete throwing over 1,000 punches against Valdez just 3 months before that. I think that Navarrete just gas tank was low. Didn't have the same work rate going in against Conceicao. And then I just think he kind of overlooked Conceicao as well. But Conceicao fought a great fight. You could argue that he should have won, but it went to the scorecards to a draw. Then he returned in April, took on some low-level fighter, got a 7th-round TKO victory in that fight. And then, as I said, returned in July against Foster and got a controversial decision victory in that fight. Threw more punches, was coming forward, but just, I mean, he was missing a lot, and he was missing very visibly. It wasn't like he was coming close on a lot of his shots. He missed a lot and should have suffered the loss. But he got the decision. Maybe it was kind of the judges rewarding him after controversial, you know, performances that he's had in his first 3 title fights, dating back to Valdez in 2021. And as I said, he should have got the nod in that fight. The Navarrete fight was a draw. Shakur Stevenson, he got dominated in that fight, but Stevenson missed weight, so Stevenson had the weight advantage coming into the fight, and that could have been it right there. But that's what he's done. So kind of, you know, he's happy because he's the world champion, but he's got a lot to prove that he can beat O'Shaquie Foster in this rematch. So what does he need to do? What kind of style, what a fight does he need to fight in order to beat O'Shaquie Foster? And in this one, I definitely believe Foster is going to be more aggressive, and Conceicao needs to go back to at least half the time being the counterpuncher. That's Conceicao's game, you know. Against Valdez, that's what he was. You know, even against Navarrete, you know, he forced Navarrete to kind of come at him and throw punches, and he countered. And that's his level of success. Now, Foster, again, I think Foster's going to up that work rate and be more aggressive because he knows that playing defense is what hurt him in that fight. So I don't think this is going to be the same fight in the rematch. But Conceicao at 36 with Foster at 31, this being his 4th fight, he needs to be in great fucking shape. And I think he wants to leave no doubt about the first fight. I think he wants to have a strong reign as a world champion. So we're going to see. We're going to see what he does in this fight and how ready he really is. But I do think he's going to be ready and confident that he can beat O'Shaquie Foster. Now, can Conceicao win this fight by knockout? I think he can hurt Foster. I do. Foster's got a good chin, but I think Conceicao can hurt him. Yeah, I think he can knock him out, but it's more like an accumulation of punches or catching him with just a perfectly timed shot. Can he win a decision? I honestly think he can win a clean decision against O'Shaquie Foster, but he's got to fight the right kind of fight in order to win that. This last decision was not a clean one, but I do believe it's possible he can win a clean decision. What's more likely for Conceicao against Foster, that he wins either by knockout or he wins by a decision? I'd say a decision is more likely. Conceicao is not a big power guy. He goes 12 rounds a lot. So I think it's more likely that he wins. If he beats Foster, it's by a decision. Now, what does a win mean for Conceicao? Well, it depends on how he wins. I mean, a win means a lot, but it's got to be a clean win this time. If he gets another controversial win, which, hey, don't be fooled. That is possible. You know, I think people are going to look at him like, you know, this dude's not, you know, he kind of was just a flash in the pan, a couple good performances. He's really not all that good. I don't think people are going to take him serious. But if Conceicao comes back and wins this fight convincingly, leaves no doubt about the first fight, you know, or who the better man is between these two guys. Because I still think people are going to argue that Foster won, even if Conceicao wins the rematch clean. And they're right. But if he comes into this fight and beats him cleanly and says, well, hey, overall, I'm the better guy. You guys might have thought I lost the first fight, but I'm legit now. People are going to call him legit. He's going to get, most likely, a rematch with the winner of Navarrete and Valdez. So, yeah, that's what I think. I think a win means a lot for his legacy deal because, you know, even though he probably should have beat Valdez, you can argue he should have beat Navarrete. He didn't, and when he finally won the world title, it's tainted because of that bad decision. What does a loss mean for Conceicao? Honestly, if he loses cleanly in this fight, not a close decision, but loses clean against Foster, to the back of the line and at 36, what does that mean for him? A loss will really hurt. A convincing loss will really hurt Conceicao. But he can be kind of that, a loss could also lead to, if he wants to continue, could lead to stepping stone type fights where people are going to look past him and look at him as a former champ that they can beat on, and he might get fights that way. So we'll see. So now let's switch over to the challenger, O'Shaquie Foster, the former champion. We're going to look at his last 3 fights dating back to this, and another very high work rate. His last 3 fights date back to October of last year, where he made the first defense of his WBC belt against mandatory challenger Rocky Hernandez. Was losing majority of that fight, was getting outworked, out-hustled, and then in the late rounds, he hurt Hernandez badly, put him down. Rocky, though, rallied and made it war in the 11th, you know, came out strong, but Foster was still the better conditioned fighter, and in the 12th round, he was able to stop Rocky Hernandez in a fucking barn burner, fight of the year candidate. Very good fight right there, as he rallied to win the fight in the 12th, in a fight that he would have lost on the scorecards and would retain his WBC belt. Then he returned in February against Abraham Supernova, scored a knockdown in that fight, but barely got by with a very close, somewhat controversial split decision. And then in July, had the controversial loss to Conceicao, a fight he should have won. Now, heading into this fight, I think Foster is pissed off, but I also think he's kind of confused about how he needs to fight. Maybe he is. I'm just speculating. I don't know for sure. Because I feel like he wanted to switch it up because the fights were too close with Rocky, with what's his name, with Rocky Hernandez and with Supernova. Those fights were too close, and I think he wanted to show his boxing ability, kind of like he did against Ray Vargas last year when he beat him earlier in the year. Show his boxing ability, show his counterpunching ability, show that. But the difference between the Ray Vargas fight back in February of 2023 and the Conceicao fight a year and a half later is the fact that he was also aggressive in the Vargas fight. He was standing there trading but counterpunching, and just was a slicker fighter, landing good shots, and he was getting off first sometimes. And this one, he wasn't getting off first. He was waiting to counterpunch the entire time and only playing defense. It was a lot of 1s and 2s, not a lot of combinations, and he needs to throw combinations in this fight. So that leads to what I'm talking about. What does he need to do to win this fight? I think he needs to be aggressive, not super aggressive, not overly aggressive. He doesn't need to fight the same exact fight he fought against Supernova, the same exact fight he fought against Rocky Hernandez. He needs to look back to the Ray Vargas fight. That was, in my opinion, that was his finest hour. That was his best performance in a fight where he was the underdog, and he boxed beautifully and was aggressive, effective aggressiveness in that fight, was beating his opponent to the punch. And if he can use that template in this fight against Conceicao, I think that's the key to victory right there, is using the angles, you know, and boxing, but also being aggressive, effective aggressiveness. That's what I think he needs to do to win the rematch against Conceicao, win it clean. So can O'Shaquie Foster win by knockout over Conceicao? I mean, I'm convinced he can hurt Conceicao, but I don't know if he can knock him out. Maybe, maybe not. I'd say, yeah, he probably can knock him out, but it's more like an accumulation, break him down type performance, because he's not a power guy. He's not a huge power guy. Can O'Shaquie Foster win a decision? Well, I hope, because he should have won the first fight. I mean, as much as I was going for Conceicao in that fight and picked him to win, Foster should have won. I mean, no doubt. But yeah, I do believe he can win a decision. Now, if he's victorious over Conceicao in a rematch and regains his title, what is more likely, a knockout or a decision for Foster? And that's easy. It's a decision. I think a decision is way more likely for the ending. I definitely think this fight's going to the scorecards, in my opinion. Now, what does a win mean for O'Shaquie Foster here? If he gets a clean victory, it means a lot. He regains the title, and he's right back into that serious mix. And like I said, I mean, I really think he's got a direct line at a rematch with somebody. I think a rematch with Rocky Hernandez is on the table for him, but I really do believe, I mean, not a rematch with somebody. I think a big fight with somebody, either a rematch with Rocky Hernandez or even a possible showdown to unify belts against the winner of Navarrete and Valdez too. So I think there's a lot on the table for him regaining the belt. Now, what does a loss mean? A loss devastates him, especially if he loses convincingly this time, because you got to go back and look at his resume. Yeah, Rocky Hernandez is still sitting there as a possibility, but he stopped Rocky Hernandez, and I think he knows what the mistakes he made in that fight. But Rocky's considered to be a threat, right? Well, Supernova, though, isn't. And Abraham Supernova lost to Andres Cortez a few months after Foster barely beat him. And now he had this controversy with Conceicao. If he loses convincingly to Conceicao, or just loses period, it's back of the line for Foster. And Foster can't afford that with his style and him not being a huge name. He can't afford back of the line. A loss really hurts him. So now, final question between these two fighters. Is it better for boxing if Robson Conceicao retains the WBC Super Featherweight title? Or is it better for boxing if O'Shaquie Foster regains it in this rematch? Tough to say, but I'm going to say it's probably better for boxing if Foster wins. And I'll tell you why. Because the first fight was controversial. Might be the most controversial fight of the year in terms of the decision. Foster's also younger. You know, he creates a different style. But it's close to a 50-50 in this one, to be honest. Because, yeah, it creates a different style, creates different fights, you know. But what if we want to see the same fights, you know, a rematch? I think Conceicao Navarrete 2 would be great to unify belts. I think Conceicao Valdez 2 to unify titles would be great. So it's slightly better for boxing if Foster wins because it rights a wrong and then potentially feeds better fights in the future. But Conceicao is kind of a late bloomer anyway, so I think it's going to be good for boxing either way. Whoever wins this fight, it's going to set up good fights. So it's close, but I would lean towards Foster on that. And now finally, what is my prediction? Who is going to win the rematch on November 2nd for the WBC Super Featherweight title between Robson Conceicao and O'Shaquie Foster? And I do think it's going to be a different fight, and I think it's going to be legitimately close, like I thought the first fight would. But I do think now the hand speed and boxing ability is significant. The styles are significant. And I think O'Shaquie Foster's better. I think O'Shaquie Foster is going to fight Robson Conceicao the way he fought, what's his name, Ray Vargas last year. I also think Conceicao is burning out, fighting so much in the past year. This is his fourth fight in a calendar year. He has fought a total of 31 rounds in a calendar year. That's a lot of rounds right there for a 36-year-old. And he just showed me in that fight with a pure boxer, a guy who can be a pure boxer like O'Shaquie Foster, that the deficiencies are there. He's not an attacker, and I think Foster is going to be aggressive, but also allow Conceicao to attack. I think he has the speed advantage, the counter-punching advantage here, and I think he's going to win. But I will say, I do think Conceicao is going to have more success in the rematch. I think he's also going to force the fight to be on his terms, and try to counterpunch a little more as well. I do think he'll have more success because I believe O'Shaquie Foster is going to fight a different style. But I still see O'Shaquie Foster winning this fight, and I think he's going to win maybe like a 115, 113, 116, 112 type of performance. It could be like a majority decision. But I do think O'Shaquie Foster wins the rematch legitimately, rights the wrong, and becomes the WBC Super Featherweight champion again. But Conceicao, I could see winning this fight as well. So we'll see what happens next Saturday, November 2nd, main event, ESPN. This is the Foster versus, or Conceicao versus Foster 2 breakdown and prediction. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing, and you've been hit with the truth.